Rise of curtains and new morning light, in life reborn in fresh surprise of love. Now I recall my childhood when the sun burst to my bed.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. On behalf of the Victoria Memorial Hall and Hindusthan Records, I'd like to welcome all of you to this very, very memorable and historical evening of numerous strings. I begin this evening quoting a dialogue between the scientists Albert Einstein and Rabindranath. Einstein says, "It requires a very high standard of art fully to realize the great idea in the original music, so that one can make variations upon it. In our country, the variations are often prescribed." To that, Tagore says, "If in our conduct we can follow the law of goodness, we can have real liberty of self-expression." The principle of conduct is there, but the character which makes it true and individual is our own creation. In our music, there is a duality of freedom and prescribed order. Rabindranath Tagore, the greatest polymath, was a great assimilator of melodies and cultures, and whatever he imbibed from outer and other sources, he transformed into something uniquely individual, Bengali, Indian. His career began in the days of India's colonial modernity, when influences from the West were seeping in and crystallizing into a nationalism that was both homegrown and imported at the same time. But soon enough, in the hands of Tagore and his contemporaries, Western cultural commodities transitioned into post-colonial modernity, when India started appropriating Western culture and metamorphosing it, indigenizing it through local inputs. It should be added here that in Tagore's hands, even the local and the traditional, specifically his music, acquired a new aspect and heralded a new age. In his songs, Tagore culled influences of the West, especially England, Ireland, and Scotland. Interest in Western music was part of Tagore's family's cultural traditions, and his grandfather, Prince Dwarkanath Tagore, personally cultivated this interest. Rabindranath, referring to Western music, writes in his memoirs, "At 17, when I first came to Europe, I came to know it intimately. But even before that time, I'd heard European music in our household. I'd heard the music of Chopin and others at a very early age. This knowledge was deepened and widened by his first-hand experience of the culture of the West that he acquired through his later wide-ranging travels. Tagore even favored experimentation with the system of harmonization of different strands of melody, thereby creating an orchestra effect for his songs. What remained undiscovered for more than a century, ladies and gentlemen, is his panache and finesse in composing Western music, which is what Debashish and Rohini, during their sojourn in the United States of America, discovered through numerous strings. Ladies and gentlemen, may I now call upon Mr. Joyanto Sengupta, Curator and Secretary of the Victoria Memorial Hall, for his welcome address.
Good evening, everybody, and a very warm welcome to tonight's landmark concert, which is the first live performance of these recently discovered songs by Rabindranath Tagore, composed in English and set to music in the Western musical tradition. Now, this is really a landmark event, and it's a privilege and honor for us to co-host this event with Hindusthan Record, who has already brought out a compact disc of numerous strings of this music. When we heard of this discovery, Tagore is is a, is a theme. I mean, I'm not describing him as a personality, but as a theme which is as wide-ranging as you can well imagine. And we have done programs, events around his work and life, time and again. But we are honored to do something completely new. We are honored to be associated with an event which explores a previously unexplored side of his many-faceted genius. And we are very thankful to Sri Debashish Raychaudhuri and his group for coming and giving this first live concert here in the Victoria Memorial Hall, which has been this Eastern Quadrangle, which like the Western Quadrangle has been witness to many memorable musical evenings, and we are looking forward to one more of these. We are very thankful to Sri Sanjib Mondal and his Kolkata Youth Orchestra for playing along with the songs which will be sung, and we are especially grateful to Sri Shankho Ghosh, who readily agreed to come here and grace this occasion as the chief guest. It's a galaxy of eminent personalities here. Srimati Pramita Mullik is here, one of the leading exponents of Rabindra Sangeet of our time. Sri Barun Chando is here, Srimati Chaitali Dasgupta is here. We are deeply thankful to all of them for coming and showing their support and to grace this occasion, you know. So that's all I have to say. Like all of you, we are looking forward to a fascinating and enchanting evening of music, and we are very, very proud once again to be associated with something which is really historic. Thank you very much. Enjoy the music and the evening.
Enchantment can also be disenchantment if you have anything that glows and buzzes switched on. So if you could kindly switch off your mobile phones and the lovely ringtones, please. Thank you very much. I'd like to invite the man of the evening, Debashish Raychaudhuri, the eminent Tagore scholar, professor of English and musicologist, Mr. Debashish Raychaudhuri, to come and talk to you about numerous strings. Ladies and gentlemen, can we welcome Debashish Raychaudhuri? Thank you.
Thank you, Shujoy. A very good evening, ladies and gentlemen. This is not quite a seminar, so I shall try to be as brief as possible. And lest I rumble around, I have written down my statement, which will take exactly 9 minutes to read. Well, it all began with our visit to the Meadville Lombard Theological School in Chicago in 2015. My daughter and I were trying to trace the connection between the Unitarian and the Brahmo faiths and wanted to pay a visit to this center who initiated movements to propagate a liberal world religion. In this present intolerant world torn with fundamentalism, we were trying to see connections with a universalist organization who quietly propagated liberal faith in religion. After knowing that we sing Tagore's songs, the director of this organization, Mr. Lee Barker, mentioned that Rabindranath Tagore's works featured in the hymn book of the Unitarian Universalist Association. The next week, we were walking down the streets of Pittsburgh, and we came by the first Unitarian church, which was established in 1905. We were graciously received by the lady and were allowed to have a free walk around the altar and the congregation area. There we saw the hymn book of the church, and while going through the pages, my eyes were stuck at the phrase, words and music, Rabindranath Tagore. We wanted to buy a copy of the book, but they gifted us the book so that we too may sing those songs here. The title of the hymn book was Singing the Living Tradition. This was published by the Unitarian Universalist Association from Boston. Here we found 2 more songs written by Tagore. After returning to India, I studied the songs and I was surprised that the tunes were set to Western classical music. I wanted to find out answers to a number of questions as to why Rabindranath wrote songs in English and when exactly these songs were composed. Why none in India knows about the existence of these English songs by Tagore. What I found is conjectural, and in order to have definite answers, one must start a serious and painstaking research at the locations where Rabindranath had visited during his stay in the US, especially during the 1912 and 1913 phase. As a student of literature, I have employed the benchmarks of internal and external evidences and came to a conclusion, after collating the findings, that these songs were probably composed during the winter-spring of 1912 and 1913 in America. I would like to present to you my conjectures, which you shall also find in an introductory note inside the album, Numerous Strings. Since 1912, Rabindranath Tagore increasingly felt the urge to express his ideas to the West. This prompted him to begin writing in English. Not only did he translate his own poems, plays, and fiction, he also began to write English polemical pieces in abundance. During his tours to America and England in 1912-13, he extensively delivered lectures on a variety of subjects, including philosophy, arts, and theological matters. Both in England and America, he was in touch with the Unitarian Universalists, who traditionally and mutually share common philosophical ideas with the Brahmo Samaj. Despite the attention he enjoyed in England, Rabindranath had not lectured there yet, owing to his hesitation to speak publicly in English. One of the reasons he agreed to lecture in America was that the request came from a Unitarian club in Urbana. During November-December 1912, he delivered several lectures which became the basis of his Harvard University lectures and those he delivered in London during May-June 1913. Later, these were published in Sadhana, the Realization of Life. It was not unlikely, therefore, that he had also composed for the Unitarians hymns and poems in English. The words and notations of his English hymns included in these albums were published in the book Singing the Living Tradition by the Unitarian Universalist Association. 2 of these songs were published in prose poem version in Crossing, which was published in 1918. The themes and subject matter of these hymns are unmistakably Tagorean and reflects his philosophy during the Gitanjali phase. There are echoes of the ideas which one relates to Gitanjali, Gitimallo phase. On the linguistic front, he continues his slightly archaic yet essentially simplistic style that he used in his English Gitanjali. On the other hand, these songs can be perfectly complementary to his lectures of sadhana. Tagore remains a foremost composer of Bengali art music. However, his musical compositions in English language and in Western musical tradition were not known to most, less so in India. This is for the first time that these English hymns of Tagore have been recorded and published to the world. These recordings undoubtedly discover Tagore's genius as a Western composer too. There are evidences that he may have consciously collaborated with Western composers while setting some of these songs to tune. The decision to use a 17th century Scottish psalter as the basis of his song Your Mercy, O Eternal One, only proves his musical intuition of recreating the meditative mood that would match his lyrics. It is quite possible that some of his English language musical compositions, however few in numbers, are lost and others are probably still awaiting discovery. This album also includes 2 of his Bengali hymns arranged in the Western musical tradition to match the idea and the themes of Tagore expressed in the English hymns. We would present all this for the first time with full orchestra in India, in Kolkata, the city of Tagore's birth. I feel privileged and immensely fortunate to bring home a few gems of the world poet that he had so carefully created for the entire mankind, but left abroad for our brothers who too celebrate a free and liberal humanism. Thank you very much. May I now request Sri Shankhu Ghosh to come over so that we can deliver a copy of the CD to him. May I also ask Mr. Shobhanlal Shaha to
Ladies and gentlemen, we have eminent Tagore exponent and, as Jayant Babu rightly said, somebody who's one of the finest Rabindra Sangit vocalists and scholars in the country today. May I request Mrs. Promita Mullik to come here and offer our token of appreciation. Thank you. I'd like to invite Mr. Shaha, S.L. Shaha from Hindusthan Records to come and join us here, please. Thank you.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Namaskar, Shankhuda. Debashish, it's a privilege of me to be here this evening. You know, I have talked to you over this at length, and this also my field of interest and what to find. And particularly, you know, I was going through different things, like in 1930 he composed The Child, which he translated to Shishutirtho in 1931. So I had worked on The Child. I think we put up about 9 shows. And then about the songs written by Rabindranath, I found that when Dahlia was translated into English, it was called The Maharani of Arakan. And there are, in the book itself, there are 2 songs. The bee is to come, the bee is to hum. And the other song is In the Bower of My Youth. One is the translation of Oli Bar Bar Phire Jay, and the other Mamo Joubano Nikunje Gahe Pakhi. But the staff notation, which I tried to decipher between myself and Sasha yesterday, the tunes are totally different. And then in Shantiniketan, the bee is to come, the bee is to hum. That was sung by one of my friends, yes, in 1969. And I don't know about the other one. But again, you just, if you look at this notation, it says words by Sir Rabindranath Tagore. no mention of the composition, the tune. So I guess it was done by somebody else, because those are taken from George Calderon's book. But if, as you said, that you found that the music was also by Rabindranath Tagore, one of the songs, so that's, I mean, I don't know how I'm feeling. I'm really feeling on top of the world. And just one interesting point I would like to mention here, that I was invited by the Society of Daniliu, Alan Daniliu, who was in Shantiniketan for a while, and then his health didn't permit, so he left Shantiniketan, he settled down in Benares. He, a French by birth, he lived in Italy. So the society is there. So a very old gentleman, when I had gone to Italy to perform, he told me that Daniliu had mentioned that Tagore wanted him to use his words, to set them to his music, Daniliu's music, and to circulate them among the Western audience. So he really liked that idea, but unfortunately the 18 songs that I have got of Daniliu, they're all English translations, but he has also used the original Bengali tunes. So this is something absolutely marvelous, and I wish you